Imagine you decide to make a YouTube video about one of your passions. You put everything you have, every moment of your spare time into it. You do as good a job as you can, and you are very proud of the end result, so you post it. And then the people take to the comments section, and there are more negative ones than you were anticipating. Some will be well intended, but some will be just plain mean, and it's sometimes hard, especially in the moment, to tell which is which. Now imagine someone makes a blog or a video reviewing your work. On the one hand, it's cool that it's been noticed and someone cares enough to make a review, but on the other, any criticisms they do have stand out even more. This isn't someone who just came across your video, didn't like it that much, so left a comment. This is someone who has put effort into criticising your video. Even if they're just a few criticisms in a largely positive review, the negatives still hurt. I have made one review of a fan work on my channel, but I felt mostly fine doing that as I didn't have that many negative things to say about it. And one of the main goals with the review was just to share it with others who maybe hadn't come across it yet. And the person who made it actually commented on the video thanking me for the review. I had considered making more, but decided against it for reasons I will outline later in the video. Reviewing fan work has been a bit of an issue in the fandom recently. I was reluctant to make this video because of the potential controversy surrounding it, but decided there were things I needed to get off my chest, and I will try and word this in the best possible way I can. I'm going to be looking at the reasons why reviewing fan work is a very tricky business, and even if the idea was with good intentions, it, for the most part, isn't a good idea to actually follow through. Reason 1. Lack of alternate viewpoints. Reviewing fan works is something that I've seen very few videos on. The comments section, if it exists, is really the only place to see what the consensus is on your video. If someone then makes a video about it, that will stand out above the comments, and that can be a problem. With the official show, there are varying viewpoints on a lot of topics. While the classic Miller, Wubber and All Engines Go eras have pretty universal views on them, opinions on the Ghislaine, Hit and Brenner eras can range from being loved almost as much as the classic era to being hated almost as much as the other three. That helps make everyone feel like their opinions are valid, because there are other people who share them. But at the end of the day, they're just opinions and personal preferences. Something I think that some people have a hard time getting to grips with is that it's fine to like something that's not that good, and it's fine to dislike something that is. Personal preferences and biases play a large role. So if you're the only person to make a video reviewing someone's work, you're just showing one person's personal views on it. If your views on it are all positive, then it's fine. But if you're not a massive fan of it, for whatever reason, then the only mainstream review of it is putting it in a negative light, which not only would be disheartening for the creator, but also may sway other people's opinions and make them less likely to watch it if they ever stumble across it. If you make a review on, say, Season 6, or Season 11, or Hero of the Rails, people watching should know that what you're doing is merely stating your opinion. One person's opinion on a whole internet of opinions. If you as a watcher disagree with the person you're watching, that's fine, and you should be able to find a different review that lines up with your opinion. Sure, stuff like the classic Miller and Wubber eras might be hard to find a differing opinion, but this is the internet. I'm sure they exist somewhere. But if you make a review on, say, The Stories of Sodor by Victor Tanzig, it will be harder to find, in a video at least, an alternate viewpoint. I, for one, am a big fan of this series. I really enjoy it. But that's not me definitively saying that it is factually a great series, and everyone should love it. People could disagree with me and not like it, or there could be disagreements the other way. While I do love the series, I do not think it is perfect. There are a couple things that I am not a fan of, but again, that's not me saying these things are factually bad, it's just my personal opinion on a couple of things. If some people love them and see the series as next to perfect, again, that's totally fine. That's their personal opinion. In this scenario, none of us are right or wrong. We all have our own opinions and biases. But, even when there's an internet full of differing opinions, some people see their own as fact and struggle to comprehend when someone puts out a video with a different opinion. Imagine what then happens if there's only one video solely dedicated to reviewing something that has as big a following as something like the Stories of Sodor. If the person making it takes time to clearly state what they're making is just their opinion, that will obviously help. But there will still be some people who get grossly offended that a reviewer simply has a different opinion. And that's only if the person reviewing it states it is their opinion. If they don't, whether intentionally or they just forget, then the video comes across as them saying their views are fact, which would just cause even more backlash. I love the internet, don't you? Another example I want to point out is Thomas Comes to Breakfast, and my own personal views on that. If you follow my channel, then you will know I am not a fan of this episode. That's not me saying it's bad, I just don't enjoy it. That's my personal bias and my own personal opinion. You will also find people online who say how much they love this episode. Now imagine a fan had made Thomas Comes to Breakfast, and I decided to make a video which includes me giving my views on it. It's exactly the same, so I have exactly the same views. Only this time, there's not the mass of people online all saying they love the episode, so my personal negative opinion will shine out. It will objectively be very good, and the majority of people who watch it will enjoy it, but the one person to do a mainstream review of it has a personal bias against it. That's not exactly fair representation. Reason 2. You don't know how they'll take it. In almost all cases, you won't personally know the person you're reviewing the work of. That means you have no idea how they'll take criticism. Sure, there's a chance they'll welcome any constructive feedback to try and help them improve, but there's also a chance that they really don't like getting criticised, and the video they were once very proud of, they now have no confidence in. Also, it can sometimes be quite hard to tell when criticism is made with good intentions of helping the creator improve, or if they just feel like pointing out how much they didn't enjoy the video. There have been a few times when I've had comments making criticisms, and in the moment I got very defensive and sent back a fairly aggressive response defending my video, before taking a step back and realising the comment was probably made with the aim of helping me to improve, rather than just aiming to criticise because they can. Reason 3. The facilities they have available. You have to remember that everything is relative. You don't know what video making equipment everyone has available to them. If one person has the greatest microphone and the greatest video editing software, even if they're very lazy and put a little effort into a video, it may well come across as better than someone who has put in loads of effort with a phone mic and a free editing software on their phone. As someone who only has a phone mic, a fairly cheap editing software, and a speaking voice I'm not a fan of, especially when it's recorded, I can easily see how one of my videos would get criticised for those things, but they're not things that, with my current situation, I am easily able to change. I hope one day I'll be able to change at least the first two, but the third might be a bit harder. I'm not saying you're wrong for not liking a video because of those things, but I'd question what the point is of pointing these out in a video, since they're not things that can be easily changed. If you're reviewing the main show, if they have bad audio quality, bad mics, bad CGI, bad editing, etc., then it's fine to point that out, as it's the main show, they can and should do better. But for a fan work, chances are they know the equipment they're working with isn't great, and they're just trying to make the best possible video they can with what they have available to them. An example I want to pull from my channel is my History of Railways on Sodor video from early 2021. This was a video I was super inspired to make, and really went all out with trying to make it the best on my channel, the best I possibly could. I experimented with using PowerPoint. It was the first video using editing software I had paid for, rather than using a free one, although a couple of my earlier videos had been made using the free trial of this software. The first time I used background music, and was constantly thinking about how my voice was sounding, and trying to make it as engaging to listen to as I could. I was fully aware it was far from perfect, but I was pretty proud with what I had achieved. And the comments were very supportive. Quite a few of them said stuff like, "You can tell you don't have fancy software and stuff, but you've done a good job with what you've got." And that's all you can really ask for. If a big YouTuber put out something like that, then they probably could have done better. But for a smaller one with limited software, I think it was pretty good. From the outside, you have no idea what tools they have available. You can try to guess, and sometimes you'll be correct, but you'll also be wrong at the very least some of the time. Reason 4. Headcanons and parallel universes. Given Unlucky Tug has just released his full review of Magic Railroad, I want to take a bit of time to talk about that. We all know it's not a good film. It's enjoyable, especially if you grew up with it, but definitely not a good film. There's too many problems with it. But here's the thing. Even if you ironed it out, took what was given and fixed it, made it less meandering, less muddled and less confusing, given it a good plot, good pacing and good acting, to the point where it would be a great film, it would still be a bad Thomas film. And that's because it's just not what Thomas is about. It completely removes the realism aspect that made so many fans love it. Because that came out of the official show, it gets a lot of hate, and screwed over Thomas's reputation to the general public. If that was a fan film, the reception would be a lot more positive. In fan films, anything goes. Any headcanons, alternate universe, any crazy idea is fine. It just has to be interesting and engaging, and you've got a whole fandom talking about how great your work is. The official show, however, has to stick to the rules of the universe. That means if you try to review a fan work in a similar way to the official show, there's one thing right off the bat you have to change in your approach. This particular one isn't a massive reason, but I mentioned it just to get the point across that official products and fan products have to be approached in very different ways. Reason 5. You don't know their personal circumstances. What a YouTube channel is for someone is different from person to person. For some people, it's their full-time job. For others, it's a part-time job or one of 2 jobs. And for others, it's just a fun hobby they've got going on the side. But for anyone with over 1k subs, they have the ability to get monetized and make money from it. And it definitely doesn't take a financial genius to say that money is something that people have been rather short on recently, and it's been getting harder and harder to get by. For some people, they don't have an issue with money. They have a well-paid job and aren't in a position to be worried, so they can take as much time as they need perfecting a video to get it as good as it possibly can be. For others, the money they get from YouTube could be absolutely essential to them. From personal experience, I know that if you have a regular upload schedule, you will have fairly regular views. But as soon as the upload schedule becomes irregular, and the gap between videos gets larger and larger, the less views you'll get. The bigger the channel, the less effect this has, but it's always going to be there. It could be that someone has a video that they would say is only about an 8 out of 10, and they know they have the ability to make it a 10 out of 10, but that would mean spending another couple weeks on it, which is a couple of weeks without the money they'd make from releasing that video early, and a couple of weeks for subscribers to lose some interest in their channel. They will probably make the choice to release the video as is, especially if they have other people dependent on them. Again, you have no idea what situation applies to what person. With what equipment they have available to them, yeah, you don't know, but you can probably find out by asking them. They probably won't have an issue with telling you. But financial situation is something very few people are prepared to share, especially if they're on the lower end. It's just the way humans are. We don't like to discuss money, and we especially don't like to admit we're struggling and need help. It could be that you're criticizing a video where the creator already knew as they were uploading it that these problems existed, but they just had to get another video out as they were dependent on the money it would bring in. Reason 6. It can make all the time, effort, money, and love feel worthless. This is the big one. At the end of the day, people do it because they enjoy it. That's the reason why all of us started, and the reason why most of us continue. In most cases, this is a hobby for us. And in most cases where it is a job, they enjoy doing it. Time, effort, and love go into every video, and in one way or another, so does money, just in some cases a less obvious way. If you praise a video, it makes it feel worth it, but criticizing a video can make it feel worthless. Whenever I get a negative comment, there's always a part of me that questions whether or not it's worth it and if I should stop. And there will be many creators who work so much harder than me on making videos, and for some of them, I'm sure the same feeling applies. What's the point in continuing to work hard on videos, only for people to then say what they don't like about it? If they give you helpful tips on stuff that's easily changed, then that may be welcomed, especially if done in a fairly private setting. But if it's someone just saying they dislike it, or criticizing things that are hard for someone to change, then quite often it's not welcomed and can be really harmful, especially to some smaller creators who are, on the whole, more likely to listen. Also, even if this definitely isn't the intention behind you doing it, as soon as you've done a review on more than one thing, whether intentional or not, you have given at least some people the impression you're ranking them, or you think that one is better than the other, and that's not what the creator's goal is. They're not trying to beat each other, they're trying to make the best possible video they can, and maybe they want to try and be better than the official show, but they're definitely not trying to be better than other creators. After my review of The Little Westerner, I had considered making some more fan reviews. I started the scripts for the Magic Railroad parody and Project Tiger Moth The Good Old Days, but then stopped. Unlike The Little Westerner, I didn't have solely good things to say. I loved them both, and they're both very high 9 out of 10s for me, but there are reasons why, based on my personal opinion, my personal preference, that they're high 9s and not 10s. If I'm making a review video, if you have any criticisms, it doesn't seem right to not mention them. But here's the thing, the criticisms barely matter. I said time, effort, money, and love, get put into every video. But that just goes off the scale with these two projects. I can barely imagine the work that has to go in to a huge 3-hour-long film that was longer before it was cut down, with live human actors, sometimes on a wooden railway set, and going back to some of the initial places where they filmed, or recreating the Thomas set on the size and scale of the classic era, making the engines, making the moving eyes, everything. It's simply unbelievable, something I could never do. Any negatives I have pale in comparison, not only to the overall quality, but also to the sheer love that went into making them. When writing the reviews, while the positives massively outweighed the negatives, the positives had already been said many, many times by many, many people. So, mentioning them in great detail felt repetitive, which made it feel like I was focusing too much on the negatives, which, at the end of the day, weren't even that big negatives. I didn't particularly mind them. They were definitely only negatives in my opinion, and did not matter at all. Because here's the thing, whether or not they were completely 100% perfect didn't matter. Not only because of everything that went into making them, but because of the effect they had on the fandom. I'm sure there are some fans who don't like them, and that's fine, but it seemed like the vast majority of the fandom all came to watch the massive 3-hour Magic Railroad parody, and everyone loved it. The reaction when Schema showed up at the end was almost unmatched by anything I've seen. And then it seemed like the whole Thomas online community stopped. If they weren't at the premiere in person, they were watching the YouTube premiere of The Good Old Days, and the sense of joy that brought was immense. If I remember correctly, it was 1 AM for me when that aired, which wasn't too bad for me since I tend to still be awake at that time anyway, but there were many others, presumably who see 1 AM as a time that they should be sleeping, who stayed up to watch this. I'm sure there were people all over the world in many different time zones who either stayed up late, woke up early, or only woke up briefly for 7 minutes to watch this. It truly was a return to the good old days, and making a review that said negative things about these two things was unfair to the fandom, who united around them, loved them, and see them as the light when the current show has been completely ruined, and to the creators who put more time, effort, money and love into these videos than I could ever even imagine. That's more than enough to ignore anything that any individual person doesn't see as completely, absolutely, 100% flawless. Nowadays, anything that unites the fandom in a positive way is rare, so we must cling to whenever it happens. So those are the 6 main reasons I came up with, but there may well be more, and I may have understated the importance of some of these. Like I said, I was unsure about whether or not to make this, as it's been quite a controversial topic recently, and I didn't want to do anything that was harmful. I decided to write the script and then see afterwards whether I wanted to go through and actually make it. And I thought a lot of what I've said, I want to say it to other people. These are the things I want to get off my chest. It may have been a bad idea for me to make this, and if you think either I shouldn't have made it or I've done a poor job, please do tell me. I always welcome constructive criticism as long as it's made with the aim of helping me, and it is made in a civil way. If people think it was a bad idea for me to make this and I should delete it, please say, and if enough people think that, then I will. My aim with this video was to try and help people understand why you should think twice before doing something, even if, in theory, it's a nice idea with good intentions. This isn't me saying you should never make a video where you talk about fan work, but videos where you criticize them maybe isn't the best idea. I would personally love to see more videos where people recommend fan works. I would love to see more fan projects, so any videos I see of people recommending what ones to watch next, I would always appreciate it, as long as the intention behind them is to share good works with others and not to review them.